Now on the page 311, that's all well and good. It's one thing to acknowledge that the church is the body of Christ, that Christ will build his church, but what does the New Testament say that a church should do? What are we to be about if we are the body of Christ? And that comes to the functions, the biblical functions of a New Testament church or a local church. We have to distinguish between function and form. And if you're around fellowship very long, you'll know this is language that we use all the time. A function is described as what the New Testament, here are the key words, mandates or prescribes. The New Testament is commanding this. It's mandating and prescribing that churches must do these things. They're called principles, commands, absolutes. You can call them, we call them sometimes, listen to this phrase, organic drivers. In other words, the church is an organism as well as an organization, and the organism side of it is the living, vibrant spiritual principles and biblical functions that we're to be about. And so we are driven by the New Testament directives or the New Testament mandates. We call those organic drivers. Now, form is how a particular church at a point in time might organize or structure in order to implement biblical functions. What we want to be very, very careful of is not making a form into a function. Does that make sense to you? Let me illustrate. Well, look at the chart, first of all. Functions are non-negotiable. Forms are negotiable. Functions are absolute. Forms are relative. Functions speak of organism. Forms speak of organization. Functions, principles. Form, patterns. So, let me just give some examples. Are the following functions or forms? An altar call. Yeah, there has to be a form. Now, the function behind an altar call is evangelism, sharing the gospel with people and leading them to faith in Christ. And one way that you can do that, is to have an altar call. But the fact that you don't have an altar call doesn't mean you're unbiblical. The fact that you don't have evangelism means you're unbiblical. And so there are some in our historic traditions. I've always been very upfront. Hi, I'm Robert. I'm a recovering Baptist. And for my Baptist tradition, you must have an altar call at the end of every gathering and pass the plate. I mean, those are the two non-negotiables. And so consequently, we begin to, in our heritage and tradition, begin to see altar call as a function rather than just a form in order to accomplish the function. What about, all right, worship leaders, what about a praise song? Is that a form or a function? Now, an argument could be made that praising is worshiping, exalting, that's a function, but a praise song is just a pattern or a form on how to worship. And if you don't have a praise song, you can still worship. Or you can use that form or pattern in order to accomplish a biblical function. So we have to be careful. What about a training seminar? Well, that's just a form. What you're doing is you are establishing or equipping people. That's the function. But you're doing it through a seminar. You could do it in other ways as well. What about, oh boy, now we're going to the sacred cows. What about a cell group? Form or function? I've had a nice debate with Dr. Harrell on this, but a cell group, well, a cell group could have multiple functions within the structure or the form of a small group setting. Many things could happen, but those things that happen at a cell group are the functions, not the cell group pattern. Are you with me? What about a mission trip? Well, the biblical function is empowering and sending of people, and a mission trip is one form in order to accomplish that. Form and function go together, but always make sure that the function is distinguished from the form, and that's a part of using good wisdom in doing ministry. All right? So let's turn the page.